sort of thing. Yeah.
This isn't the beginning.
No, I know. That's how I normally do it. I don't fuck around trying to create separate intros. I don't have time for that shit.
So what's your intro?
It's on the spot. So I have an intro that my mate made me, and then I just do an on the spot intro of you.
Well, throw it at me because we're recording.
So what is obviously your name's not John Wick.
So, man, look, I'm so fortunate that the movie character John Wick exists. Like,
because your name's John, yeah? It actually is John.
So, listen.
Yeah, okay.
John Wick's name, Keanu Reeves, is Jonathan.
Yeah.
Okay. My name is Jonathan.
Mm-hmm.
Right. It's Jonathan Wick is the Keanu Reeves character.
Mm-hmm.
That is the best fucking action kick-ass movie, right? But my name is Jonathan Chadwick.
Oh, that's hectic.
Yeah. So myself, I'm called the Game Experience, right?
Yeah.
And I've sort of been called the Game Experience since maybe 2019. But my sort of slogan for the Game Experience is the game is life. So the game is the life. Mm-hmm. So the Game Experience, the life experience being that through choice, you can sort of navigate through the multiverse, right? Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Through choice, you can also level up and change your frequency, change your vibration. So through frequency, vibration, choice in a multi-dimensional universe, you can level up in the game called life. So that ties in with the simulation, or saying that you can be any character in this game. So I've got John Wick, and that's how it worked. That's how it come together. And look, not many people get it. Like people, like I go and add family members. Like I don't have Facebook, but I done like breathwork training through Awaken Breathwork, and they had a Facebook group. So I had to join Facebook to get on to their Facebook group. And I went and added a lot of my family members, and they all rejected me because they're like, who the fuck's John Wick? And I'm like, it's me. Like, how do you not know?
Oh, shit. That's so good.
So, yeah. So,
okay, cool.
So that is my introduction on the Surf Shack.
Well, welcome to the Sacred Surf Shack, Jonathan Wick.
No worries, and
I hope you're as action packed as Keanu Reeves.
You know what, man? What a man to fit in all of the like movies that he has. The obviously we've got The Matrix. Mm-hmm. He plays The Matrix, and he also plays John Wick. He has done a few. I mean, look, like the thing about this, you got Bill and Ted's Bogus Adventures, or Bill and Ted's. Mm-hmm. Do you remember Bill and Ted's?
Yeah.
So he was on like a time travel, sort of thing 30 odd years ago. Then The Matrix, and then everything in between that he's done. That's just not even his Speed. Keanu Reeves was in Speed. Mm-hmm. There was a couple of
Constantine was a good one.
Yeah, that was a good one. But they're all tied in. So Hollywood's definitely telling us something, aren't they?
Oh, 100%. 100%. But I want to save that for later.
Okay, good.
So, because I want to go there at some point. So just for everyone knowing who's listening, Jonathan's a local man where I'm from. I'm not going to disclose any locations. He's an awesome dude. He's just become a father. Super authentic and genuine. Like, you don't meet many. I don't meet many men who are the same. Regardless, that's what one thing I noticed about you, brother. Like online, I've chatted to you just one-on-one Zooms and stuff, and even just in voice messages, you don't change. You don't. There's not one bit of like being this person or being that person or being this person. Like, you know, the mask wearing you see online. So it's quite. I love authenticity. So it's been awesome to connect. You're also an ultra trail runner, which just that shit, to be honest, it just blows me away because I'm not a runner. I'm not a runner. And I like sprinting, but I'm not a long distance runner. Like, yeah, anyway. So it's just awesome. I find your expression and your journey quite inspiring. And I know we were chatting before, like, what do we chat about? And you threw two pretty fucking good questions to start it off and kind of just let it guide the podcast, guide the show. So I know we have very similar but not similar, you know, coming out of the same sort of symptoms of trauma, I would imagine. So yeah, I can't pull the questions. It was like, how did we get here? How did I get here? And where we're going now?
How did we get here? So where we are today, there's a story, right? And we've both got a story. So I can share my story, you can share your story, and, you know, then where do we go from here? You know, what is it that are we trying to share a message for change in the future? You know, are we trying to save humanity moving forward? Where do we go because of how we've gotten to where we've gotten to today? Which I think, you know, rather than just sort of asking questions back and forth, it's sort of like, I think it's sort of, you know, that identity that is the name, right? So James and Jonathan, that's not really who we are, you know, and whether we're sort of like trying to find who we are on an energetic level, like who are we and what were we before we were given these names? You know, in this world where the name is the sort of based on or through the English language. So that's man-made. You know, all of these things that we identify of or with are all man-made, right? So are we here because we're like, none of it made sense to begin with and it didn't add up, and we sort of had to go through a rebirthing process or go and, you know, scratch the surface and interact with the devil and what the devil's got to offer and, you know, go and face the demons, get brought down to rock bottom, just to rebuild and find out who we are, so we can get out of this, you know, mess that it seems like the whole entire world is in. Because it's crazy out there. There's a culture war, there's psychological war, there's information war, there's digital war, there's all forms of warfare that's taking place. And, you know, amongst it, you have this strange thing that's going on that is an awakening. But I did actually write something down because I did want to actually ask you a question. And I suppose that if I just sort of ask you now, since I've said the word awakening, but it was, what was it? It actually was, what is an awakening to you? Because I feel that there's a lot of people, whether it's in like, I'm not going to say like the spiritual world, right? But like there's a lot of people out there that go, especially online, you know, that are like talking about government shit, talking about this, talking about it's like they always go, you know, wake up, you've got to wake up. Australians need to wake. Like there's a lot of people out there going around with this slogan of wake up, but it's not wake up when we're in an awakening. So we're awakening to something, you know, and what is an awakening to you?
That's a great question. Something I've been sitting with for actually some time, and probably still there. I feel like I'm still at the I don't know, but I'll share what I've landed at so far. So I feel like you have a non-abiding awakening experience, and then you have like a full awakening experience. The full awakening or awakened state being that of like enlightenment or transcending samsara. Fully there. You're still in some samsara, but you've transcended to the point where it's not touching you anymore. Nirvana, a nirvanic state. So that, this I feel like most people don't land at that straight away. Do not go into enlightenment, nirvana. They may have an experience that might be like touching the edges of that, a glimpse, a small glimpse. And it's this glimpse that shifts them. It's a non-abiding awakening experience that shifts them where they can't unsee what they've just saw or felt or experienced. This is what happened to me in prison. I had multiple experiences like this in prison. I had 3, and I can't unsee, and my life trajectory changed from that. And it's, I guess for me, it started with that sort of like, I became awake, or I started to awaken to my dysfunctional habits and thought patterns and beliefs and just shitty behavior, shitty past decisions, right? So I was like, fuck, I've got to change. I've got to really sort my shit out. But then I fell into the truth seeker sort of rabbit hole of looking outside and being awake to the corruption, the government lies, the warfare on all different levels, right? And I feel like that's where there's a trap. Wake up, wake up, wake up. Whereas true, for me anyway, where I've kind of landed, a true truth seeker doesn't just stop there. I think that's a pit stop, and you can keep coming back to the pit stop as long as you want. But I feel like we need to be careful not to get stuck at that pit stop where it takes us away from you finding the truth within us, or the absolute truth, which is like moving in the direction of becoming an awakened being, the fully awakened state, which I feel like it's an organic process, a natural process, and that everyone has their own timing to it. It's not something that I feel like you can per se force. You can't make it happen. Most of the time it's the ego wants, if you're like, I'm going to become enlightened, it's the ego, right? And I've been there like, I'm going to do this, all the bullshit, and then landed at like, just let it naturally unfold. And my kids are the ones that have always kind of checked and corrected me here. They've just brought unbelievable amounts of humility and pie in my face, to just check and correct me. And I've landed at a place of just let this naturally and organically unfold. Whether I become enlightened in 100 lifetimes, it doesn't fucking matter anymore. It's a natural process. It's an organic process. It's like a seed planting in to the ground, and the seed just knows every step, every stage. It doesn't go all the way from a seed to an oak tree like that, like a flick of a fucking switch sort of thing. So I feel like awakening is similar, and what we're seeing on the planet is like something is happening depending on what model we believe in, right? You've got the different kinds of models. We've got the flat earth model, the sphere model.
The funniest thing about flat earth?
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not a flat earther, or I'm not a globe believer. I want to see it to believe it. Right. But the funny thing is when you go on, there's Eric Dubay, and there's another guy who's got like this flat earth app. He's gone so deep, but they use the same showings as to, okay, hang on, I'll say this better. They say the reason that they know space is fake because NASA uses CGI. But when they give their examples that we live on a flat plane, that they too are also examples of CGI. So their main talking point is it's fake because NASA uses CGI, but I'm going to prove that the world's flat by showing you CGI that the world's not round, right? That's one of the things that they always show, but who knows what we're on. But anyway, continue.
Yeah, so like I agree. I'm the same sort of thing. It's like I feel like you have to land at a place of not knowing, to be honest. Like it's a very challenging place to land at, because we're to not know, and this is a part of awakening, is to not know. You're seen as from a cultural belief or cultural assumption sort of level. You're seen as stupid, ignorant, dumb, unintelligent if you don't know. But not knowing is probably one of the most profound and powerful places you can rest in. Like, you look at a child, a very young child, they're in a state of not knowing all the time. And look at them. Like, you look at, like, I've got a little 8-month-old. I know you've got a little young fella. And you look at them, they're constantly not knowing. They'll fucking hurt their hand, and then 10 seconds later, they're doing the same thing again, jamming their fingers in the thing. And it's just in this state of not knowing, because they go back to this pure state of just the world is just fresh and new, not filled with beliefs, not filled with this and that. And I feel like that's what we're trying to do, as you know, as we're moving in this sort of awakened thing, as we're trying to delete all the different cultural and societal and individual and, you know, parental is in our parents, even as a parent, the beliefs and assumptions and thought forms and just different models, different systems that aren't going to support our individual awakening and our individual essence. So kind of coming back at the start, like you're saying, how, you know, what are we here trying to do? Like, you know, James, Jonathan. And I feel like it's part of, like, getting named. It's almost like part of the matrix, or part of the whatever it is we're here in a simulation. It's part of the self-forgetting. Like, it's almost to steer us off even further. I'm James, and I'm this, and I'm that, and all the different identities and roles and masks we'll end up wearing from James. And you're right. It's like, you know, what's before James? What was I before James, sort of thing? What was my essence? What has my essence come here to do or be, whatever, you know? How am I here to support life or God, or be of service to others? And I feel like all of these different things I've just kind of shared is all tied into, like, you know, the very highly charged word of awakening and awakened. And a lot of people throw it around willy-nilly, you know, without any sort of understanding of what that might be. And I'm still trying to understand what that might be. I'm still in a place of, I'm not quite sure yet. I haven't landed at a full distinction or definition or conclusion what that is, because I know I'm still in that process of whatever the hell it is. But all I know is, from my initial sort of experience of I guess awakening, or non-abiding awakened experience, it's been a bloody journey. You know, so this is like, what, 9 years now, I think. About 9 years I've been on this journey. Probably longer, actually. My first experience was taking too many drugs. I had, like, all these different drugs, and then I had LSD, and then smoked some synthetic cannabis together. And is
that from a pharmacy?
No, not from a pharmacy. No.
I knew someone over 10 years ago that was smoking something synthetic from a pharmacy, but I didn't know if it was the cannabis.
No, you could buy it. It's like random sprayed smokable herbs sprayed with synthetic THC. It just gets you super stupid high. It's super dangerous. I had that, and then
I think it's a very similar thing to.
Yeah, there's a yeah. I guess this was in 2012 for my first experience, but I fell straight back to sleep, sort of thing. It was like, so it was scary because I forgot who I was. I didn't know my name. I didn't know anyone in the room. I was without a party. I didn't know anyone in the room. Face, I didn't know who they were. It took me about half an hour to figure out who my partner was. I was just in this state of like no self, no nothing, everything. And I was hiding under the covers, just like dying. Like I was in so much fear, dying. And then a few of them managed to like pull James back out of that. And from that moment, I never touched, didn't touch LSD for a long time after that. And
so you had LSD and synthetic cannabis.
I'd been up already for 2 days. So I'd had like MDMA, speed, drinking, and this was like the third day awake in the daytime. And then it was LSD and then smoking that, and it just sent me right over the edge.
Yeah, no, that the story's gotten interesting because that sounds like it would.
Yeah, so that was the initial experience, but then I just went back to doing all the fried shit again. And it wasn't until I got in trouble with the law, I'm not going to go into why, don't worry, it's nothing violent or weird, so obviously associated with what I was consuming. And I got thrown in prison. So I got for a year. So I got charged first, obviously, and then I went through this huge process of like, where's my life going? I was like, what the fuck's happening? Friends were dropping off.
How old were you when you went to prison?
So I went in at 25. Spent a year in multiple different prisons around Australia, and it was like I had these pivotal moments. Upon the first time, so as soon as I got into Silverwater, I had this wild experience, and then so it felt like something came out of me and something dropped in. That's the only way I can describe it. It's like when I went from court into the waiting room into the driving truck thing, and then got to Silverwater. In that sort of like transition, something had left me and something had entered me.
On a good and positive sort of transition, or
on a very
I'm a firm believer of being sort of energetically attacked by entity based on what you're doing. But as you're saying that, I'm thinking of you, because you're entering the prison, and a prison is sort of, to me, would be a dark place. Whether you could be hijacked by a darker entity,
I know, I hear what you're saying. I'm fully aware of the different invisible forces that can hijack you, and I've had plenty of experiences with entities and different forces through this journey, and most of them of the darker kind are not. It's fucked. It's just fucked. But I feel like
when I use the word entity, and I think that like people would think as that something as like in a physical form as well, but you use these words to describe specific things as a way of translating on exactly sort of, because like everything is energy, right? And not everything has a physical form. So, like we use and label God as God, although God's not physical, you know what I mean? Like God's just that thing, but we use the word God because we identify as it, right? So we use the same word as entity because we identify it as, then you can sort of put the imagination to, but it's not a fucking goblin that's hijacking you. So just if I use the word entity, just so it doesn't freak people out and they go, oh, how about that guy that James spoke to and he said the entities hijacked the vessel when he was entering entering jail. So
yeah, not so much what I'm saying. I feel like more so it was like and even this word, it was like an activation of some sort, or it was like I was entering a new phase of something. Like it was, so I don't think I can describe it. It's like this fresh energy came in, a different perspective on life came through. Whether it was a benevolent angelic force, I don't know. It definitely didn't feel malevolent. I don't want to go too far into the whole lower astral beings of what you're kind of talking to, different entities and stuff. I feel like that could be a separate thing in and of itself. Plus, I don't want to give them power because that's also another thing, an aspect. But yeah, it was a powerful experience when that happened. I really saw parts of myself in prison that I didn't know was there, because I feel like I went into a place of deep service, like without even meaning to. It was like I was a light in there, and all the darker sort of people were like moths to a light, because I had some of the scariest motherfuckers coming up to me and just they're like asking for guidance, and I just chat to them and talk to them, and they would be all of a sudden be sharing their relationship problems or what they've done, and then they snap out of this trance that they were in with me and go, "Oh, I don't know why I just shared that with you." And I'm like, "Oh, it's all good, bro. Like, don't tell anyone." They're like, "You better not tell anyone." And I'm like, "Don't worry, I'm not going to tell anyone."
They're probably trying to get in your pants.
No, honestly, these are these are like big bikies, and like, you know, not people that you would walk up onto the street and go, "Hey, you going, mate? Let's have a chat." I met a bunch of characters in there, and it really showed me the human condition and just how much, like, doesn't matter what you fucking do, even if it's like evil and malevolent and fucked up. Like, at the end of the day, one thing I noticed, like some of the stories they would share, I'm like, what the fuck are you doing? Like, to do that to a person. But deep down, like, they had this, their heart was still yearning to be heard, to be listened, to be validated, to be acknowledged, to be loved. Deep down, their heart was still yearning for that, even though they might have stuck a fucking 13-inch blade into someone's hip and twisting it to get money out of them. Like, you know, that's the level of things they were sharing with me. And I'm like, here I am, like, sitting in curiosity at the same time going, holy shit, like, this guy did that sort of thing. But there was a part of them that wanted to be heard and seen in that, you know, and not judged. And these are the kind of things that I noticed, like, I was able to give people, just radical acceptance without judging, without sort of like, you're bad or you're good or you're evil or this and that. I was just kind of listening. And I think for me, that's where, you know, the experience of prison, I'm still pulling wisdom and gold out of it now. Definitely still hasn't fully integrated. It's a past experience I return to often in a reflective sort of way.
Do you think everyone can sort of reform in a way of change where, like, I was thinking about this the other day about about jail and stuff, and like, you know, there's a lot of people that are locked away for, you know, like, there's a lot of people in America that are locked away from charges of just possession of marijuana. Yet those states, it's now legal to, like, whether it's prescription marijuana or whatever it is, medical marijuana. So it's just stupid. There might be people on, you know, 20 years because they carried, you know. But I sort of look at the prison system as just like this, I don't know, just this way to further punish people. But we sort of we can learn from it, right? We could re-educate. So basically, even though there's some criminals out there that you could not change, right? But I believe within everybody, like, if somebody committed a crime when they're 20, 25 and 30, and it's based on their programming from when they were a kid, right? So let's just say, okay, well, they only turned out like that because of who their mum and dad was, or they only turned out that way because of who they associated with. So let's just take them out of that environment, and we'll go and show them something. We'll go and, you know, put them off grid and let them just, like, fall in love with themselves and see if they have a different outlook than life, like a different outlook to life. You know, do you think that there's a possibility that we could correct the prison system in a way of re-educating people and also help those that are suffering by reprogramming the subconscious to release trauma and all of this stuff? Like, because, you know, there's ways of releasing trauma through breath work and stuff like that. Like, do you think that could be a way of, like, saving some people? Do you think that's a possibility, or you think that it's not possible?
I definitely feel like it's a possibility. I do feel like it has its limitations. So depending on how you want to look at it, and I'm still unsure with what I'm about to share, it's like, you know, maybe these people have to go through it karmically, or maybe they have to experience this. This is what they've come. This is their study material. They've come here on Earth as simulation to learn, you know. Maybe they're NPCs and they're playing their part. I don't know if that's that sort of theory out there. I saw a pretty cool thing about NPC theory is, like, everyone's an NPC, and then they have a moment where they can shift from NPC into something, a soul journey. I don't know. Anyway, but coming back to your question, it's like, I do feel like that, to, you know, having a reform of the, you know, both the educational system and the prison system could profoundly shift society, but it's just because it's so run on money and politics and this old sort of system. It just feels like it won't happen. But I do see where you're coming from in that, from just where I've walked and seeing other people as well come from, really hard times, and then, being powerful people or being loving people, kind people, or, inspiring people. It is possible. I just feel like it would be a small percentage of people who that would ignite them or awaken them.
Do you know who Michael Barry is?
No, I don't.
Michael, have you seen the movie The Big Short?
No, I've heard of it. Haven't seen
You
it.
familiar with it? So the 2000. So Michael Barry is the lead character in that movie. So he was the one that shorted he shorted something that he could see it was going to crash. So, that it was, whether it was the housing market or whether it was the banking system through bonds or whatever it was. But Michael Barry, he done a tweet on what he was pulling his money out of and what he was keeping his money invested in. So this is like pretty much over the last 2 years, so he's pulling his money out of like maybe tech stocks, or pulling money out of Amazon, or pulling money out of, Tesla or whatever. But he's a large portion of his investments is that in the prison sector. So, because it's privatized. And I sort of heard that and I seen that and I was like, wow, there's a different layer to what we believe the prison system is. Like, we think that the prison, and this, you could put this under the title of, this is an awakening for me from what I realized, right? Because I thought the prison system was that to put bad people. I'm not saying you're bad. Right? I thought the prison system was that to put people out of control. Not saying you're out of control, right? but
questionable.
But actually, it's like a private ran sort of business that, it's not like I have a company and I'm a builder. It's I have a company for a private ran prison, and there's only one way for me to get money, and that's to put people in prison. So then there's a twist to it, because then the system is designed to process people through the prison system. So the whole thing is just this big, massive trap. But yeah, like I never knew that. Like I never thought that like there is shares, investments in the prison sector. So these people that are billionaires in the stock market, Wall Street, all of this stuff, they want you in prison so they can make money.
Yeah.
And they don't give a fuck. And that's why you see people going to jail for petty crime.
100%. And it's like, I heard some of that in Australia, like some of the higher up corrective, the screws. I can't pronounce it, just the screws. They had like their own little dodgy things going on in there. Little businesses have like the inmates making things for like, there's a group of them making things for them, and they're making money off of prison labor. I don't know if it's true or not, but I heard that at one of the prisons I was at, and I was like, fuck, so here we are working for we're working for prison, but we're actually working for a business that is for the screws that they have going out. So it's all about money, man. And I don't feel like a lot. To be honest, like I know in Australia there has been a little bit of a reform in the prisons. Some of the prisons are actually quite gentle and tame and chill compared to, say, America. There's a lot of young offender prisons around Australia that, it's probably not the best thing getting a bunch of young criminals together, because they just do dumb shit. I went to one and it was pretty intense. It was not chill. Luckily I kept to myself, but and it was the oldest one there. But they do some really good programs, a part of them, to really support. And you can see a lot of them were getting a lot of support out of that. So I do feel like if these private sectors and the government and all the things that are interlinked into it, if they really wanted to, which they don't, but if they really wanted to, if the right people got into power, I feel like you could have a lot of people change and start to really change the world. Unfortunately, it's only a possibility. It's not an assurity at this point in the game or in life or whatever it is that we're living out right now.
Nice. So you went into prison and you felt a shift and a change that you noticed. You noticed it instantly, or you noticed it, or you felt it straight away. Is that you familiar with Dr. Joe Dispenza?
Yeah, I am.
Without sort of diverting this over to me snowballing in a big long bunch of words that takes us, because we'll find out when you got out of prison and where did you go into, because how did you get here? But I slightly forgot what I was. Oh, Dr. Joe, right? Okay. So Dr. Joe teaches and says about how you can sort of rewire yourself, right? And so how we're programmed, and the subconscious is programmed, and all of these things. But basically, that the past memory is always connected to an emotion, right? So our thoughts connect us to a past memory, which then ignites the emotion. So I'll be like, okay, I'll think of a tragic event that happened in the past, right? That'll make me feel a certain way. This may bring up the anxiety. This may bring up stress. This might, like a time when, I don't know, I was going to say, like, if you come out of a relationship, like if a girl broke your heart, right? Like you go back to that time and it gave me anxiety. Like, I was dumped, I was left, I was abandoned, I was all these things, right? So you go into that thought and it connects us. But if you snap out of that program, right? So that version of self that exists, if you tap out of that, and like, what I did with not drinking, and I haven't drunk, for the last 4 years, that because I no longer drink, that every single thing that was attached to me and my past life, because I don't do that anymore, I've completely disconnected to that emotion, right? So the thought doesn't connect to the emotion, so that part of my life does not exist. So there's a lot of my past that is blank, because it's like I can't connect to that emotion because there's a big part of my life that was involved in drinking. And Dr. Joe talks about that in how we can sort of rewire ourselves by, altering our thoughts and creating a different version, creating a new version. By doing that, I never really understood it. I never really believed in it. And it was only because of what I did where I get it and I understand it, right? So do you find yourself connected to that version of you? Like, do you look at yourself and go, I'm James, the guy that like went to jail? Like, are you hard on yourself to that, or have you completely let go with an understanding that, that is just a part of you that existed at one time and you've moved forward from it?
Yeah, I think that's a really good question. I like how you've just explained all that. I do feel like, we have to embrace and experience the emotion and then alchemize it into the opposite. in order for us to reframe the past experience so that we can no longer be identified with it. And for me, it was a big journey, I think, because I went to the military, was in the Navy for 4 years, and then not long after was when I went to prison. So it was all kind of tied in together, the drugs, the alcohol, the sex, the military, and then prison with all this very enmeshed experience. It's been a very intense de-identifying from that sort of thing. You know, a lot of just different beliefs from both structures. You know, you've got the military, then you've got the prison, and there's different indoctrination there. There's different, I can't remember the word. What's it called? It's escaping me. Anyway, it'll come back to me. And I've kind of probably just landed in a place where I'm now starting to look at it. It was a past experience. I experienced that. Probably more prison, and the drugs and the alcohol and the sex and stuff. The one that I'm still struggling and still a little bit enmeshed with is probably the military, because I just got...
You said the word sex twice, and you're telling me about the prison experience, and you've used the word sex, and it's sort of like, what sex are you talking? It's like, I want to go, what do you mean sex? Like, what are you talking about? You keep throwing this in, like, but
so nothing happened in prison. That's what he's talking about. No, I was just addicted. I was addicted to sex. I was, very addicted to sex. You know, I was sexually abused when I was younger, by older women, weirdly, a few times.
You said that, and I didn't know where that was going, but okay.
Yeah, it was and I really just linked that, to be honest. I kind of brushed it off to this stock standard sort of male,
So what, do you think that might have been a reason that's why you had, because I was actually going to say, when you sort of got out of this segment of speaking, that because you said the military, the jail, and the drugs and the sex and all this stuff, like, do you like that was a highlight reel of your life, but do you know how you ended up like that? Like, can you relate that and go, it's because my childhood upbringing, or I had a mum but I didn't have a dad, or I come from a broken home, or my dad was an alcoholic, or like, can you understand why that happened? But why, by you saying that this...
Yeah, I can understand it. I'm going to honor myself and not share it. But I do understand. I have linked it into childhood, not in particular too much my mum and my dad. Like, obviously they impacted it to some level, but it was more my teenage years, 12 onward. And, I not lived on the street. So I like to explore the street life when I was from about 14 onward.
I think that a lot of teenage, I'm only not interrupting, I'm just saying this because you brought it up, but I think that there's something missing when we start to go into that puberty, go into that teenage years, where I think us men and women, I think we need a fucking rite of passage. I think we need something like, if you're like 11 and you go to your dad and go, Dad, I think I got a pube. Or if you're 12, you're like, Dad, I think I got a pube. I think I'm turning into a man. I'm about to be a teenager. I think you got to pick that kid up. And I think you got to like go rock climbing, go do something, go canyoneering, do something where they go into that, they break free of that, fight or flight response, or that stress hormone, like all this stuff that's sort of within the mind that's trying to develop. Like, I think you've got to like take a whitewater rafting where it feels like it's gonna where it needs to get into a flight of survival. Because if you look at like what happens with animals, Amazonian animals or African animals, like they go through that transition of being a baby into this. Now what you got to defend for yourself. Like, now you got to hunt down the fucking zebra. Now you got to fucking, you know what I mean? Like there's a big transition that happens in the animal world. And I think that we've lost it within our tribal ways, where this is why we go to drugs and alcohol and the wrong friends. Like, it's like there's something that's not happening in the family unit anymore. We need to go out into the wild. Yeah. This is where I think that this is what, like, a lot of, I think, is what's missing. That that true
Yeah.
tribal nature, we got to put our kids through a rite of passage
Mhm.
of, breaking that,